Kawhi with those quick, large hands. George off glass and banks it home.
It's again by Devin Booker, but the loose ball rebound comes out to George.
He's not missing anything.
Full basket. 4 of his 5 shots were all in the paint. He's hit a 3, and now that jump shot, and he cuts the lead down to 15. George accosted, no whistle, but gets the bucket to fall.
The Clippers an opportunity to get one more bucket here to close out the first. George on a catch and shoot, lets it go, and knocks it down to end the first.
And that's what you got with Becky Hammond. So it's just a continuation of other coaches on the bench. They didn't look at it as anything different. Once they knew, like Paul George knew that was going in. That
we will not have a starterless fourth quarter. Paul George remains on the floor. He has 23. Lobbed it to Zubac. Oh my! Of 7. Kennard inbounds to an unaware Ibaka, but he makes the recovery. George for 3. 10 treys for the Clippers. 80-58. They were shot. Has been an international competition since his teenage days. George finds a seam, drives the lane, reorganizes in mid-flight and lays it in and cuts a lead down to 4. Crossing blades here early on in the season. Paul George for 3. It's good. George isos on Lillard, loses the ball, gets it back. Lillard loses his footing. That frees George for a second consecutive.
Good ball movement here, sets up the open shooter in George, who's able to knock down the 3.
Yeah, he's on it.
Ball getting a little sloppy. A good save there by Covington, but picked off. Here comes George with Covington to beat. Gets right to the rim and lays it in. 82.
Dario's got to stay at home here.
Paul George with the step.
offbeat a little bit in regards to their cuts, would then tend to peel back a little bit.
George, a graceful glide to the rim, and the Clippers lead 98 to.
And continue to shoot those threes that well, hoping maybe they can continue that to give the Suns some opportunities to get back in it.
Except George that makes it 7.
I think quiet night so far for Paul George, but 4 of the 5 starters are in double figures. George, one of them, has 15, give him 18.
Monty Williams telling DeAndre Ayton, stay down, stay down. Batum backs up, looking for the 3-point strike.
Hand up.
And just a tough bucket right there. You can't ask for better defense from Ayton than that. Booker hoping to provide some cooling effect defensively. George on the spin inside, gets the contact.
But every time he's on the floor, he's going to make the right decision. Here's George for an open 3. Book it. 88-64 Clippers.
Ayton got the tip in, but a bucket nonetheless. 15's the magic number, and Paul George.
Oh my.
George pops out on the baseline off the screen, and Paul George hits nothing but net.
Ayton back on the floor with 5 fouls. George right to the rim. George with a game high 36. Rising up for the deep 3 over Ayton. Got it.
Paul George, step back baseline jump shot. Got it. Smooth.
On that 10-footer.
Here is Reggie Jackson. Played just 3 minutes there in Salt Lake City and was scoreless.
Leonard comes away with his first rebound. 4:14 to play in the first quarter. George for 3.
Tough
Got
shot. Right, that's a tough shot. Great defense.
With this Clippers team, also EJ, is just a little reminder to the Suns. It's like, okay, welcome to being one of the.
Golden State hasn't led since it was 3-2. Paul George with the mid-range jumper, good.
Ty Lue, Leonard driving. Nice touch pass from Kennard. George holds the finish with half a second and knocks down the 3. And the Clippers cut the lead down.
You would control it.
No, too late. Too late. That's a win for Patrick Beverley.
Sure is. Especially if Paul George knocks that in, which he does.
And sometimes you do need that default veteran player to be a great voice.
Be on edge every single night, and they have something to prove individually and collectively.
Paul George, one of those guys, and proving something there.
Reggie. Back out to George. George. On the three. Paul George. That's what he's
going to break. The Bulls have hit all 4 of their shots. Clippers are 5 for 6. This is George for 3. They are 6.
As Bagley guarding Kawhi, the claw kicks it out. Here's George, 5 on the clock. George keeping his dribble alive and lays it in.
Oh, yeah. Great defense by Lou Williams, and he sends it forward to George with White to beat, bouncing into defenders and lays it in. Clippers by 3.
No,
okay.
you know, what's left over he'll get.
He'll get it.
So I don't think he'll be that consistent, 15 and 8 kind of guy or whatever it is.
By the rookie.
It's not as difficult as it may seem.
Paul George unloads a 3. Book it for Paul George. He has 22 and has 5 of a kind here.
Man. Paul George ready for takeoff. PG 13 as Luke Walton calls another timeout. Paul George up to 20.
George, count the basket and send him to the line for the old-fashioned 3-point play.
The second quarter, here's Kawhi. Back out to PG. PG for 3.
Boy, Oubre is really out of sorts. Cross-court, Paul George rising up. Fouled and 1. Count it.
Sean leading the Kings with 11. Paul George, the leading scorer, with 14. Make it 17. And we got to talk about Paul George.
Malik Beasley.
With all the bodies and hands and action, that's why dropping it or throwing that lob pass, they can find it that way. When you try to shuffle it off, it's hard to find it in the